responsible for. And that will be an inclusive list of the words you're responsible for test one. If I don't give you the word today, then you're not responsible for it. So if you go through the book and you find words that are not on the list, then you can just skip those. Okay? So we will be starting on page 5. Now, how you go about doing this, I don't care how you go about doing it. Some people choose to just take a notebook paper and write them all down. Some people choose to go through the book and highlight them as we go along. Some people choose to do both. Some people choose to do nothing and just sit there. And that's your right as well. Okay? But what we have to do is get to page 5. Now, I'm not certain how we're going to get to page 5 because this doesn't seem to be working. Maybe I can approach it this way. And we are on page 5. There you go. So, starting on page 5, there's a yellow or orange, yellowish box, I guess it is. We're looking at words, statistics, population, census, and sample. So we were looking at the word statistics, population, census, and sample. Page 5, statistics, population, census, and sample. Page 5, statistics, population, census, and sample. Moving on to page 16. Moving on to page 16. Parameter and statistic. Page 16, parameter and statistic. Everybody got those two? Moving over to page 17. Moving over to page 17, we have quantitative data. And we have qualitative data. Now, I will point out to you that qualitative data is often referred to as categorical data. Okay, they're the same things. Okay. When I was at USF, I asked the students what was the difference between qualitative data and categorical data, and it really screwed them all up because there is no difference. They're the same. Okay. Also on page 17, discrete and continuous data. Also on page 17, discrete and continuous data. Okay. Page 17, discrete and continuous data, and that's also with quantitative and qualitative data, often referred to as categorical. Page 25. Jumping ahead to page 25. Random sample. And they say random sampling. I just call it random sample if you remember from class. Simple random sample. And systematic sampling. Or systematic sample, if you will. Those are on page 25. Random samples, simple random samples, and systematic samples. Jumping from page 25 to page 31. Page 31. Sampling error. Page 31, sampling error. Page 31, non-sampling error. So page 31, two terms, sampling error and non-sampling error. Okay. Moving over to page 44. Jumping forward to page 44. Frequency distribution. Orange box. Frequency distribution. Page 44, orange box. Frequency distribution. Moving over to page 45, just skipping over to the next page. We got several words here in this orange box. We'll start with class width and class midpoint. We'll start with those two. And then we're going to also look at class boundaries, which we would have talked about. And then I'm going to combine these two into just this idea of class limits. Remember we talked about class limits when we did frequency distributions? So you're looking at basically class limits and class boundaries. Class limits and class boundaries. Class midpoint and class width. Okay. Class limits, class boundaries, class midpoint, and class width. We are now jumping over to page 47. Page 47, you will see relative frequency distribution. Relative frequency distribution. As a matter of, just to make sure, we did this, I did say page 44, frequency distribution, right? Yes. Okay, good. All right, page 47, relative frequency distribution. Skipping ahead to the next page, page 48, cumulative frequency distribution. Cumulative frequency distribution. Page 48, cumulative frequency distribution. Page, oh, you're going to love this. Page 80. Get to jump way ahead to page 80. In bold print, 2 words. Descriptive statistics. Inferential statistics. Bold print. Descriptive and inferential statistics, page 80. Going to the next page over, page 81. Mean. Page 81, mean. Now, as we go over to the next page, looking at page 82, we start off with some symbols. Little n, big N, X bar, and mu.
So we did a big O N, big N, and X bar?
X bar and mu, yes. We'll just highlight them all. Little n, big N, X bar, and mu. You need to know what the symbols represent. They're the first 4 of 8 symbols you're responsible for. Also, continuing down page 82, median. Continuing down page 82, median. Now, moving over to page 83. Moving over to page 83, next page over, mode. Page 83, mode. Moving over to page 84. Moving over to the next page, page 84, mid-range. Okay. Page 84, mid-range. Now, page 96. Page 96. Page 96, range. Page 96, range. Moving over to the next page. Moving over to page 97, standard deviation. Moving over to page 97, standard deviation. Now looking at page 101. Looking at page 101, variance. Looking at page 101, variance. Jumping over to the next page, page 102. Top of the page, you'll see 4 more symbols. This concludes the 8 symbols you're responsible for. S squared, sigma, and sigma squared. S squared, sigma, and sigma squared. 4 symbols you're responsible for. Okay. Now, on page 103 and 104, you'll find the empirical rule and Chebyshev's theorem. For those of you that are familiar with it, you know that that's going to be question 2 on test 1. Empirical rule and Chebyshev's theorem. We're going to talk about that later on. Okay. So page 103 and 104, the empirical rule and Chebyshev's theorem, not a definition as much as it is a whole darn question. So page 103, 104, empirical rule and Chebyshev's theorem. Moving over to page 112. Moving over to page 112, z-score. Page 112, z-score. Now, page 114. Page 114, percentiles. Page 114, percentiles. Moving over to page 117. Moving over to page 117, quartiles. And then skipping ahead to the next page, page 118, box plot. And with that being said, that will conclude